Hello and welcome to Hooting Mandrills. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Sam.
And today we'll be covering Aetherdrift spoilers for the Alchemy cards. Alright, up first we have Arius Flyby Trawler. For a blue and a red, legendary shark pirate 1/1 flying trample. Whenever Arius attacks, seek a non-shark card. Discard that card at the beginning of the next end step. Whenever you discard one or more cards, put a 1/1 counter on Arius. So seeking is kind of interesting, I guess. Discarding is valuable with the pirate synergies. But I don't know. I mean, maybe in Alchemy this card is good, but that sounds like a tough sell because now you have to play Grixis if you want to still play the Frog in Historic.
Yeah, it's in kind of a rough place in Historic. It's mostly worse than a lot of the other discard 2-drops that you would think about playing, even apart from Frog, even just in its colors. FOMO and Inti, and even something like Ledger Shredder, which is a little outmoded now. It is a pirate, so there's that if you wanted to try to be like Grixis pirates or 4-color Coco pirates with Crucius for Coco or something. Maybe this would go in that if you were more discard focused, less artifact focused, but I think this card is probably not quite good enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you were planning on playing a Scourging Skyray or two, I could see playing this instead, but I don't know in what historic context you would be willing to reach for that card anyway. It's just a little expensive. But a cool card for sure. I just think that, yeah, it's a tough place.
Feels like more of a Brawl Plant and Alchemy card to me, but
for sure.
All right, next we have a card that would be timeless playable, except it's not. Bailout. 1 black, scam a thing. You know, classic limited trick where thing dies, thing comes back. It's good with grief and fury and stuff. It also has overload for 4, which is sort of funny. But you know what else is good with grief is ephemerate, and most of the scam decks in timeless these days are Orzhov. There's also reanimate, which is just an actual good card, not a filler limited trick that you are able to play to scam things in timeless. Even compared to actual scam cards, this doesn't grow fury out of bolt range if you just scam fury on one if you're trying to do the Rakdos scam thing. I don't really see it. I think it would be close to seeing some play at some point if it were legal in Modern, especially if Fury and Grief were still legal there, but I think it probably won't see a ton of play in timeless.
Yeah, timeless is really the only place where you would play this card, obviously, and it's just outclassed as well, I believe, so alas. All right, up next, we have Chomping Mastasaur, 4/2 red, dinosaur 6/6. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, discard a card, then seek a non-land card. When you discard a card this way, this creature deals damage equal to the discarded card's mana value to any target. So, I mean, powerful. 6 is a lot of mana, not legendary, so it is a valid persist target.
It's a valid persist target that kind of plays both sides of the ball in your Reanimator deck. It has a good ETB that either FTK something or go face for a lot, while also fixing your hand a little bit and maybe fixing your graveyard. Yeah, like you said, it's a tough sell. 6 is a lot. It sure does cast off Arena of Glory, though, and I could see there also being a deck where you just on, whatever turn, exert Arena of Glory, tap 6 mana, play this thing, trigger, attack, trigger, and just kill your opponent from nothing with that. I don't think that's insanely outside the realm of possibility. The thing that probably is insanely outside the realm of possibility is trying to Madness Emrakul off of your Chomping Mastasaur.
Yeah, I don't know where 6 colorless mana
certainly not
is
if you're
coming from.
Not if you're playing Arena of Glory. 6 colorless is so hard, but it is still a thought that entertains me. But yeah, I think not every deck will want this, but I think this is a card that I could see myself playing.
It's not on our sheet, but something I was thinking, there's a lot of Seek mechanic in this go-around of Alchemy cards, and maybe that Lurker card that lets you double Seek could do something somewhere. I get you don't get to double the damage trigger with the Lurker, but still, seeking more cards.
Lurker
it's a lot of
on
expensive stuff. Yeah.
Okay,
so Lurker is here to come. I haven't seen these yet. Sam just finished them before we hopped on the mic. So we'll see. It seems fun. Yeah, there seems like a lot of good Seek stuff. And this card maybe could do something.
All right, next we have Deviant Skytech, an enchantment for 2 and a blue. It starts your engines. On ETB, it makes 2 1/1 Thopters with flying, and when you get to max speed, you can pay 1 and a blue, sack it, and make 2 more Thopters.
That's a lot of Thopters.
Yeah, it's a little expensive at 2 and a blue, but there's good Thopter stuff in Historic. Retrofitter Foundry's just there. Emporium Thopterist, if you can ever get it to live and actually put Thopters into your hand, does a lot of work and kind of curves with this thing.
There's that Pia card too, not exactly in conjunction with this card, but what does it give them? Haste?
Yeah.
So that's not the best thing. But if you're doing a lot of Thopter nonsense, who knows what you're up to. Yeah, I could see it. That seems like an interesting concept. Retrofitter Foundry, obviously a very powerful card, so make lots of Thopters. Turn them into 4/4 constructs. It doesn't seem bad.
4/4 constructs or 3/1s if you have an Emporium Thopterist in play. 3/1 flyers kind of hit.
Yeah, that beats, yeah.
A little on the expensive end for Historic, but I could see this seeing play.
All right, up next we have Fuel Tank Feaster, 1 and a green, Ooze Druid, 1/3. At the beginning of your first main phase, a random creature card with the greatest mana value among creature cards in your hand perpetually gains this spell costs 1 less to cast. And then tap, add 1 mana of any color. So that's kind of cool. It is competing with things like Fanatic of Ronus and Birds of Paradise and Llanowar Elves and all sorts of other stuff. But if you have expensive cards and this guy can stick around for a while, they won't be so expensive pretty soon, I guess. But I don't know how much Historic play this could realistically see.
Yeah, probably not a ton. As far as 2 mana dorks that can tap for multiple effectively, this is sort of a variant on that. It's hard to see it beating out Fanatic Ronus. I don't know. Maybe the use type will matter someday.
That's true.
That'd be cool.
There is slime against humanity out there still.
Yeah, this doesn't discount it, unfortunately, and you probably want to go 1 to 3 if you're playing mana dorks in a Slime Against Humanity deck.
That's very true, yeah. But yeah, I don't think that you should really be trying that in Historic unless you get some new tech soon. Who knows? It is a card. I don't think that it's gonna break the Historic format, though. Up next, we have a Goblin Crash Pilot. Whenever this creature crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains haste until the end of turn. At the beginning of your next end step, sacrifice that vehicle. When you sacrifice a creature this way, it deals damage equal to its power to any target.
I don't like this card much at all. It crews a thing, gives it haste, which is sort of nice, but it doesn't crew super well. And then flinging the vehicle at the end is kind of medium. If Esika's Chariot were better as a generic good card, like it still kind of is in Pioneer, maybe, but it's like at least that has a lot of its value on ETB and its attack trigger and its legendary, so like you can get some gummed up in your hand. But yeah, I don't really see it.
This card, like other cards, it doesn't have the pilot thing where it crews bigger than its power, so it doesn't even crew Esika's Chariot by itself. Obviously, you also get the cat tokens with the Esika's Chariot, but I don't see this in any context. Even Aetherdrift commons have this text on them, so I really don't see it. I think that this card is bad. All right, up next, we have Great Fang Chroniclers. For 1 and a green, it's an Ape Druid 2/2 with double team. So double team is a mechanic where you get another one in your hand when you cast it.
When it attacks.
When it attacks. Okay.
And then both perpetually lose the ability. Yeah, so it does that, and then for 3 and a green, it conjures a Muraganda Petroglyphs onto the battlefield. Then this creature perpetually loses this ability ability as a sorcery. Petroglyphs is double Anthem for vanilla creatures. So the joke here is that if you get to play this thing, attack with it, and then at some point use its ability, it is a creature with no abilities. So it gets the benefit of the Petroglyphs. I don't think...
It's a lot of work to get there.
I don't think this card's great. It's kind of a lot of work. It's okay. A bear with double team is not the end of the world, if that's all it is. It's a card if they don't kill it, if a 2/2 body is relevant in your format. If you are putting Petroglyphs in play, kind of works with morphs, with a lot of tokens. There aren't really a lot of vanilla creatures you're actually interested in playing. The thing that I came up with as a way that you would have vanilla creatures you're interested in buffing in play was the army token from Orcish Bowmasters or Elks from Oko.
There's no way you're playing this in Timeless. Right?
I don't know, actually.
Attacking on turn 3 with this thing, a 2/2 attacking on turn 3 seem very likely, I guess.
If it can attack, or if you're happy enough with it eating removal, I kind of don't buy it myself. Are you playing
I think
this?
you found like probably the best 2 cards in conjunction, but these are also 2 of the best cards in the whole format anyway.
Another problem with it is that these sort of Sultai piles just aren't very good in Timeless these days.
You know, you're missing like the Witherbloom command / Wasteland stuff that makes it so viable in Legacy, right? So you have Witherbloom command, but it doesn't do anything without Wasteland, right? So it doesn't do enough without Wasteland, I guess I should say. So yeah, I don't know. It seems tough.
I kind of think Oko's too slow and too fair for Timeless these days.
That's such a crazy comment, but you may be right. I mean...
I think that about Uro, too. Uro would probably be better than Flage in Historic, would probably be better than Flage in Modern. Like, in Timeless, Flage is a scary card and Uro's a fucking buy. At least for the deck that I play most often. I don't know.
If you're a sicko trying to take Great Fang Chroniclers into Timeless, I support you. Like, if you're really trying to make no ability Kindred happen, I'm all about it, but...
Vanilla is a Timeless flavor. 5/5 Elk, let's go. But
that's a lot of setup, though, so I don't know. But yeah, if you're a sicko, please leave a comment about how you want to do this. Okay, up next, we get a kind of a cool card in Hangarback Assembler. For 1 and a white, start your engines artifact. When this artifact enters, conjure a card named Hangarback Walker onto the battlefield. Then put a 1/1 counter on it. Max speed. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each artifact, creature, and or vehicle you control. So, kind of fun. I mean, making Hangarback Walker tokens is sort of silly and fun. Hangarback Walker is a good card.
Yeah, I mean, this is a decent amount of pretty good material for 2 mana, even if you assume you're never getting to max speed.
And max speed, we talked a lot about how hard it is. White is a harder color, but artifacts with Gingerbrute and stuff a little easier to get there, I guess. But in red-black, it seems not super hard to get max speed, if my standard stuff has taught me anything playing the last couple of weeks. But I like this card. I think that you will be able to get max speed probably. This card might be just a good addition to like a hardened scales type situation in Historic.
Like I said, even if you never get to max speed, this is a decent amount of material. It could just be good enough for a Scales deck, or if you're playing the White Splash in Affinity. And then if you can get to max speed, Steel Overseer is a pretty good card if it doesn't die, and this is harder to kill.
Yeah, I mean, the 1/1 at each end step on every artifact creature, incredibly powerful, especially in the Scales deck. But I think that you can get max speed in Scales, especially with, you know, Gingerbrute's good, all sorts of other types of artifacts that get in, Zabaz and stuff, all decent things.
I'd forgotten that Zabaz was on Arena, but he is, I'm pretty sure.
He very much is on Arena, yes. I've been thinking about, since we saw that green, white Gear Hulk, I've been like thinking about the hardened scale space, whether that be Pioneer or Historic, and this card seems to be a good addition for the Historic version at least. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add about this card?
I mean, maybe just a little bit more on the floor being, you are never getting to max speed. You put 2 artifacts on the battlefield, and one of them makes another artifact when it dies, even if you never tap it or grow it from there. So this is a pretty solid amount of material for 2 mana, just at its absolute floor. And its ceiling is
through
pretty
the roof.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, good card. We'll probably see some play in Historic.
All right, up next we have Highway Reaver, 2 red, black, 4/4 Scorpion Dragon. Flying, start your engines. Whenever this creature enters or attacks target creature card in your graveyard without unearth, perpetually gains unearth. The unearth cost is equal to its mana cost, max speed. You may pay 0 rather than pay the unearth cost of the first unearth ability you activate each turn. So like I said, start your engines. Red, black is the color to get it done. Unearthing is something as a Sliver player that I love very much. So I like this card. Once again, the word haste would make this card a lot better, but we take what we could get.
It is in colors and of a mana cost where you could conceivably be playing Arena of Glory. Oh, it triggers on its attacks too. That's neat. Yeah. So, I mean, the dream is to get to max speed and get to level your opponent for free, but I don't know that this card's good enough if you aren't like curving up towards max speed, if you're not in a deck that's interested in playing Burnout Bastronaut. But Burnout Bastronaut's not a horrible thing to unearth. It's pretty hard to block. It doesn't cost a ton.
Once it gets max speed, the double strike is pretty good on the, a little expensive Fire Breath, but twice the cost, no color, and also you have double strike. Menace, pretty good card. I mean, it's definitely a cool card in Standard. I could see it being good other places.
Yeah. Fortunately not legal in Standard, and Alchemy is just like a weird format where it's small Standard, but with sort of Historic Horizons cards in it.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't just take Alchemy the format out behind the barn, but
everyone is kind of thinking the same thing for a long time. No, I mean, there are people who play it, of course, but it just seems like a silly format.
Yeah, in Historic, 4 mana is a lot, but this card is cool. All right, next we have Kari Zev, Crew of 2. 2 red for a 3/3 Menace Haste, Legendary Human Pirate. So far, so medium. Your red cards already sort of have haste if you want them to from Arena, but it is a good keyword. But then this text is sort of cool. Whenever Kari Zev attacks while you don't control a legendary monkey, conjure a card named Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. At the beginning of the next end step, if that card is on the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So play it, attack trigger, dash a Ragavan. And, 4 is kind of a lot of mana, especially in an aggressive deck. But these sort of Boros, Mox Amber decks do tend to play a lot of lands because they just play extra copies of Eiganjo and Sokenzan as spells. Mary is a cool card that isn't never that far from being good in Historic. Can't play actual Ragavan in Historic, but you almost can't play actual Ragavan in Timeless these days.
That's true, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah,
he goes in energy sometimes.
Turn 3 or 4 for this card. I could definitely maybe see it. The deck would have to work pretty hard.
That deck also already has a lot of pretty good top end in Adeline and Animpakal, but I could maybe buy 1 or 2 of this card in a deck like that if you really want to play a version of that deck that gets to play Mary, which you don't get to in Pioneer.
Yeah. Which one is it? Is it Rogue's Class, the red-green one?
Rogue's Class is the blue-black one. The red-green, Bard Class.
Bard Class. It's a legendary creature. Could this be a Bard class deck? I don't know. Bard class isn't good enough for Historic. We can move on. Okay. Masterpiece Vault. Artifact 3 cost. Whenever this artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draft a card from Masterpiece Vault spellbook and put it onto the battlefield. When an equipment enters this way, attach it to up to 1 target creature you control, and 5 sacrifice this artifact.
So the spellbook is
swords.
A bunch of commandery equipments, Champion's Helm, Lightning Greaves, and then 5 of the 10 swords. So
all the iconic ones. None of the newer ones.
Oh, these are all the... Okay.
These are like Feast and Famine, Body and Mind, War and Peace, Light and Shadow, Fire and Ice.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, so obviously the joke is that you don't spend the 5, you play this thing, and then you sack it to, I don't know, Oni Cult Anvil or...
Deadly Dispute
or something, and you get an equipment and you put it on a thing, or you get a pretty decent equipment, you put it on a thing, and...
But it's just like a rolling the dice. Did you even get protection from the right colors? I don't know. This card sucks in my opinion. But
yeah, I think this is mostly a brawl card. It mostly produces commandery material. It is a little too expensive and hard to use. Just like saying Oni Cult Anvil to myself made me want to like it more than I do, but like that's sort of just between me and Oni Cult Anvil, a card that I really liked when it was in Standard, and don't like as much now that it's in Historic. But it is sort of funny to think about, you know, Oni Cult Anvil on 2, on 3, play this thing, tap Oni Cult Anvil, sack it, make a dude, get a sword, put sword on dude. That almost sounds like I'm gaming.
My thought for this card, since it is a 3-cost artifact, is that you could play it in a Simulacrum Synthesizer deck. You could also sack it to the Refueler, or what is that card? Repurposing Bay, yeah, and get a 4-drop artifact. But that's a lot of work to get a sword attached to your 10/10 artifact that's just better anyway.
And unfortunately, if you did pod this into a 4-drop creature, the sword would come into play and look for something to equip to before the creature got there.
Right, so you'd have to have some creature.
Sort of cool, though.
Yeah, that's really the only only way to play this card in Historic, I think. Okay, Mitotic Ultimus, 7 green, 8/8, legendary ooze giant. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Trample. When Mitotic Ultimus dies, conjure 2 cards named Metallic Slime onto the battlefield, which are 4 and a green, Metallic Slime, ooze, 4/4s. When this creature dies, create 2 2/2s, and then when those 2 2s die, make 2 1/1s.
Well, not that old of a card. I think it was in... Well, it's a pretty old card. I think it's like M11 or something is what Mitotic Slime is from. So this is just 1 more power of 2 onto that.
But with cost reduction.
Yes, which is important. It sort of cares about the same thing that fight rigging does. Maybe you can get to the density of payoffs for your Rotting Regisaurs or Ancient Ones or Calyx Scions or Shakedown Heavies or whatever bullshit that becomes sort of a viable thing to do. It seems like it sort of has some cross synergy with doing Emperor of Bones type stuff. Fight rigging can keep triggering Emperor of Bones, as well as Emperor just being a good way to put big things into play. This card might be a piece to the puzzle there. It's big and it doesn't go down easily at all. Also produces a large amount of evidence, both itself and the Mitotic Slimes that it conjures into play. Those are another 5 each. So if you want to collect evidence, maybe you're playing Analyze the Pollen, maybe you're like me and really like Urgent Necropsy. Little overcosted, but it's like almost a first pick a lot of the time in these sort of big dumb arena cubes that they put on sometimes for me, because if you have enough evidence, it sure does kill a lot of things. And, you know, maybe it's too much of a pipe dream to say, okay, I'm going to kill your Flip Dejani, your Goblin Bombardment, and I'm going to make you sack one of your creatures before that Goblin Bombardment goes. But it does sound like a fun thing to do, as maybe a one of.
It does. Maybe I'm too standard brained, but I'm afraid of death triggers because of exiling. But maybe people destroy more in Historic. That seems to be accurate.
A little bit more, yeah. It's not Timeless, where the best 1-mana removal spell is just swords, and it's not Standard. Even Standard is starting to get efficient enough that the Domain players are allegedly starting to move from Sunfall to Day of Judgment. And I don't know if I buy that for Standard. I don't plan to come and check anytime soon. But in Historic, it is more true that if you're playing a big Wrath, you're playing something like Damnation because of your color requirements, or you're playing Supreme Verdict. So I can buy Death Triggers as a thing that will actually go on the stack in.
So that's good. That
Historic, you know,
that makes your Ultimus a lot more appealing for sure. All right, up next we have Motivated Muralist for 1 and a red, Dwarf Bard 2/1 Improvise. So you can tap artifacts to help pay this thing. When this creature enters, conjure a card named Inspiring Statuary into your hand. And Inspiring Statuary is an artifact, 3-cost, non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise.
I have wanted Magda Gloin's stuff to be good in Historic forever. It hasn't been. This card probably doesn't fix that, but you sure can tap a Universal Automaton to Improvise, and that sure does make a treasure with Magda, and you sure
Tap that treasure.
You sure can tap treasures to improvise things, which means you still have them to Magda with. But I think this is just Archway of Innovation with extra steps.
Yeah.
And dwarf typing, which is not quite enough.
Feels bad. All right. More difficult things to say. Naktamun Shrine again.
Naktamun
shines again. Okay, yeah, well, that's fine. 2 and a white. Saga enchantment. This one doesn't have read ahead or anything, so you got to go in order. All creature cards you own with mana value 2 or less perpetually get +1/+1. Then on the second turn, seek a creature card with mana value 2 or less, put it onto the battlefield. And then 3 creatures you control with mana value 2 or less gain flying until the end of turn.
This is a powerful effect, and the fact that it messes around with lore counters makes me think about my boy Metastatic Evangel. But the sort of deck that would care about these kinds of effects is going to have a real tough time justifying this card because it is a permanent with mana value 3. So as long as Luris is still legal, this card is effectively banned, I think.
That sounds right to me. It doesn't seem that good. It's decent, but...
And I think it's good in the way that the 3 things add together to, like Fable, another card that's not good enough for Historic, but has been very good in a number of formats. You know, you get a Glorious Anthem that will never go away, will apply to everything you play forever. Then you get a free 2-drop onto the battlefield, and then you jump your board. And this sounds like it would be a very powerful thing in Pioneer. It is not as good as Companioning Luris, I don't think, in Historic.
Little is. Okay, next up we have Ornate Imitations for X green-blue sorcery. For each number between 1 and X, conjure a duplicate of a random creature card with that mana value onto the battlefield. X can't be 0. So if you can put a couple of mana into X, you can get quite a few random creature cards. Which sounds good. I don't know. What do you think of this card?
Yeah, so I think silly. As a just huge mana sink, by the time you're talking about like 8 mana, this is worse than Doppelgang. Like if you pay this for 8, you are getting a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. But at Doppelgang X2, you're getting 4 things which are effectively 2 each of the 2 best things. And
this is random stuff from all of Magic.
Yeah, this is random creatures from all of the cards that are programmed into Arena. At 5, I could buy this being better than Doppelgang. So really at every number from 1 through 7, which, okay, that's gonna put a bunch of stuff onto the battlefield. If you care about conjuring, maybe you're doing Boar's stuff, with like Third Little Pig, Swine Rebellion. Those cards are more in Abzan colors, so blue is a little awkward. But I don't know. It's not as good at just Coco at 4. It's starting to get there at 5. It has to be a really specific deck to want.
I guess you don't need to have the same kinds of limitations that a Coco deck does, though.
That's true.
So that's something. It's obviously not as good. You're getting
a
junk
random 1 and a random 2 instead of
the best 3
theoretically
in the
2
game
good
that
3s.
You can work together. Yeah. So I don't know. It seems funny and silly, but yeah, I think you're right. Probably some kind. The Pigs deck wasn't bad a while back, right? It did some things, but it never really made it to the front.
It was sort of more of an alchemy thing, I think.
Okay.
Porcine Portent used to be really good in Alchemy. Probably still is, because it's still legal there. But, yeah.
It's a silly card. I don't think that it's great. But maybe if you are in a mind where you really want to build this deck, it's there for you. Okay, up next is Quickbeast Amulet. Green and a white artifact equipment. Starting intensity 0. Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is this equipment's intensity. Whenever a creature you control enters, this equipment intensifies by X, where X is that creature's power equipped to. So it's interesting. It's sort of like Chainsaw for green-white, I guess. Not really. But you can definitely get a lot of creatures to enter the battlefield under green-white.
It does intensify by the creature's power. This thing gets really big really fast.
Where X is the creature's power. I'm so still you just put big boys and it gets huge, but...
I'm still not quite sure what to do with it or make of it, because it's still an equipment that equips for 2. It's not really expensive enough that you are trying to do hammer stuff with it, and it doesn't really play well with hammer creatures because they're all small to wear hammer well. It sure is going to be a big equipment that represents a lot of power and toughness that's kind of hard to kill because it's an equipment, but is that good? And what deck wants it? I am not entirely sure.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's silly. Man, yeah, I misread this card. I thought it was intensifies by X, where X is the number of creatures, but creature's power makes it a little more interesting, although if you're going, tall instead of wide, it's just taller, and it doesn't give trample, so you already got to have trample. I don't know. It's an interesting card. I'm sure it's good. It sounds powerful.
It would be really cool to play with this with like Ball Lightning type cards, but obviously you're not doing that because Ball Lightning is 3 red pips and this is a green and a white pip. There is not a historic mana base that will support that.
Yeah, and big stuff for being big. There's some green, obviously, stuff that just gets big from itself being big, but I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. It's a weird deck, I think, if you're going to build this. But maybe, I don't know, maybe like you splash white and dinosaurs or something. Just like big guys in green. But I guess you could already be playing white because there's some pretty decent Naya dinosaurs. But dinosaurs seems like a tough place to be in historic. I don't know. Comment, tell us, how do you play this card? Okay, up next we have... Oh my god, you should read this one.
Rising Chicane, I think, is how you pronounce this.
Oh, like chicanery or something, right? I don't know.
I think they are probably of the same linguistic root. I don't know what kind of location a chicane is, but look it up on Google and let us know in the comments. It's an artifact land. That's a cool thing to be. If you were the starting player, that's a cool thing to be. This land enters tapped. That's a not cool thing, but about half the time it's an untapped artifact land. Cool. Start your engines. Speed land. Possibly valuable if you care about getting to max speed for some of the cards in this set that really need you to be at max speed, which is tricky in historic because you have to play cards that aren't really powerful enough for the format to get you there. Taps for colorless. At max speed, it turns itself into a man land at the start of each combat on your turn, which kinda exposes it to removal, but also it's just free. You're not spending all 5 of your lands to attack with it like you are with Hive of the Eye Tyrant or whatever.
It is a non-indestructible artifact land, so it's already fairly susceptible to being removed, at least in games past the first one. But it's cool. We talked about Glaring Fleshraker in this start your engines type things. This seems like another possible option. You maybe have to like sideboard this thing and only play it if you're starting player. I don't know. If you're not the starting player, rather, if you're on the draw. But I don't know. It could be fine. Maybe you can have a tapped land. Probably not. It's interesting. I don't know how much you need this in a Glaring Fleshraker deck, though. Seems like the other raceways were better. All right. Now we have Routeway Moose. 1 and a green for a 3/3 elk mount. Whenever this creature attacks while saddled, seek a land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Saddle 2. So you're saddling, you're getting lands, you're on a moose. What could be better?
Yeah, I mean, this is this card. I think this card's good. It's it's a Watch Wolf at its
bare minimum. Yeah,
bare minimum. Saddles reasonably and just ramps you if you care about landfall effects. Maybe you're playing like Scythecat Cub or Bristly Bill. You're gonna hit a land, and even if your 3/3 couldn't attack, maybe a 4/4 could. And play this thing, play the Cub, saddle it.
A 4/4 on turn 3 seems like a pretty likely thing to be able to attack. I don't know if there is stuff that I'm not thinking of, but
Scythecat Cub also plays sort of cute with District Guide. A cat and a corgi play cute together. Who would have thought? But it is a bunch of 1/1 counters that if you're interested in doing mount stuff and interested in doing landfall stuff.
And green-white has that really powerful mount card. What does it give him? Hexproof?
Oh, yeah, Miriam, the Herd Whisperer.
So that's decent.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of good stuff going on in that space, and this card is of a base power level that makes you take it seriously. It also seeks and ramps, which makes a card like Lurker in the Deep sort of interesting, I think. Obviously, they don't curve one into the other, but if you have a moose, you impend a Lurker, you effectively draw a card, get a thing that can crew, and then saddle up, seek again, get another 2/2. That's pretty decent.
That's a lot of things. Yeah, that seems good to me. I guess there's a potential even that you could get a branch of V2 Ghazi and be able to flip it up. It's a little cooked, but
I mean, thinking about the card branch of V2 Ghazi is a little cooked, but that won't stop me.
No, it won't, obviously won't stop me either, but you know, that's the only land that you can you could actually turn face up. Interesting card. I like it, and the art's cool. We like Moose. All right, we've got Sala Deck Boss, 1 blue-red, legendary Squid Pirate 3/3. Each creature you control with an exhaust ability has haste. That's kind of redundant, but that's fine. We'll keep going. Whenever you activate an exhaust ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. That's pretty sick, though, that part.
I honestly kind of like the exhaust ability creatures have haste line, too. It means, for one thing, that your Soul Cauldron that you're probably playing in your exhaust deck is just a Fires of Yavimaya now. You put an exhaust ability under a cauldron, every creature with a 1/1 counter on it has haste.
It seems like a tough sell at the current moment to be doing exhaust stuff in Historic.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sort of struggling to do it in Standard.
Yeah, you look at all these cards on this slide, and they are kind of a deck that is fun, but not tier 1 in Standard, which is not a great thing to be porting over to Historic. Faithless Looting and Malevolent Rumble are really good. I don't know they're that good.
Yeah, I mean, they are that good, but not good enough to make these bad cards good. Yeah, that's what we were saying. But yeah, all right. So sad, Sala, deck boss. But the other thing we have to consider is that exhaust abilities are supposed to come back. So we may get more 1-cost exhaust abilities that make this a lot more appealing. And we may find 1-cost exhausters with 1-cost.
There's at least one later on in this very slideshow.
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, Smog Smasher, 4 and a red. Oops, unplayable in Historic. 4/4 menace. Start your engines. I mean, it's just like start your engines on a card that costs 5. I mean, it means you have to build your deck around it in the first place, but whatever. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, conjure a duplicate target non-token creature into exile. Max speed. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put all cards exiled with this creature onto the battlefield. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah, so this is like a powerful, but obviously not for constructed effect. You need to have a 5-drop resolve and then be hitting your opponent with things, and then at max speed get to a new start of your combat, and then you pop off. It's probably pretty good in Brawl.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Of you that are interested in that sort of thing, I am happy for you. Okay, next we have Spectacle of Destruction. A 1 and a black enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures die, put a wreck counter on this enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if this enchantment has one or more wreck counters on it, remove a wreck counter from it and seek a non-land card. So as long as you can keep turning this on, this is a pain-free Phyrexian Arena for 2 mana that always draws spells. That's not bad. You do need to keep turning it on, so something needs to die every turn, or you are going to miss a draw off it. If something needs to die, or I guess if something dies and then you proliferate it or something, but probably just something
Probably dying is the easiest, yeah.
But, you know, this is a potentially quite powerful effect. Also, Seek synergy, so, you know, hit the knee with the rubber mallet. Lurker in the Deep is drawing us in with his, like, little anglerfish lure.
Hopefully he doesn't find his way to the lighted waters like that poor anglerfish that they found. But anyway, side tangent. Yeah, this seems cool. You can sort of see how this could work. You know, Phyrexian Arena, not good enough for standard, but this is a lot more applicable, I think. I think that you can have creatures die every turn, multiple a lot of the times.
Yeah, I mean, one of the top decks in the format right now is a Mardu Sacrifice deck.
So this sounds like it would slot right in, probably.
Yeah, Energy might play this 1 or 2 across the 75. Maybe there's a blue-black control deck with this and Lurker that's gonna seek a bunch and make a bunch of 2/2s. That would be cool and exciting. I think the card's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool too. All right, up next we have Speedbrood Stalker for 3 and 2 black. We have an Insect Assassin 4/3 flyer. When this creature enters, choose target opponent. Secretly choose a creature or planeswalker that player controls. That player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker of their choice, then sacrifices the chosen permanent. Ooh, so do you want to play a game?
Yeah, so it's kind of like Flip Shelley. It is guaranteed to get their best thing if you need to get their best thing. And if what their best thing isn't entirely clear, then you get to play a game where if they guess wrong, you get 2 of their best things.
Still costs 5 and is a 4/3 flyer insect.
Yes.
So not the best card in reality. I like the secrets. I like secretly choosing things. That's kind of fun. A little rough on this guy with the mana cost, but still fun. And it doesn't also do it on attack either. That would probably be too busted, I guess, to make them sack 2 times every time. But at 5 mana, it's just like...
I think if it attacked...
This would be broken.
Yeah, putting this in off Arena of Glory and getting
2 triggers with 4 sacrifices potentially is nuts, yeah.
While also hitting for 4 in the air would be a lot. As just ETB, I agree, it's kind of sketch in Historic, but...
Yeah, I'm not saying the card should be reworked, but, you know, it's just like only doing it on entrance, yeah. I mean, you can obviously flicker it or whatever, but... Okay, now we have Support Skyforge, 3 white-blue, 4/4 vehicle, Flying Vigilance. When this vehicle enters, create 4 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. Whenever this vehicle attacks, draft a card from the Support Skyforge spellbook. That card perpetually becomes an artifact creature. This is kind of cool. I mean...
So the spellbook is, real quick, Smuggler's Copter, Sky Sovereign, Sky Skiff, High-Speed Hoverbike, Heart of Kiran, Aether Sphere, Harvester, Hull Drifter, and
Air Response Unit.
Some draft chaff vehicles, some actually pretty good ones. They're always creatures, which is sort of neat. They range from cheap to expensive depending on what you need. So, okay.
But the ETB, it creates 5 artifacts for 5. That's decent, you know?
I think you probably can't just play this as a blue-white control finisher. It's just worse than Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, or the One Ring in a blue-white control type deck, but it sure does produce enough material to improvise out Kappa Cannoneer all on its own. So if you want more big stuff in your affinity deck, this is a big stuff.
Yeah, it lets you go a little wider, too. We were talking about they are servos, not thopters, but servos also play into the retrofitter foundry thing, right? You can turn a servo into a thopter. I guess that's kind of a slow road to victory, but it is what it is. I don't think that this card is insane or anything, but, you know, 5 artifacts for 5 kind of fun. You could, once again, get this off Repurposing Bay or, other type schemes.
That's true. You can pod up to it off of Frogmite. That makes it a lot more exciting in Historic.
But yeah, I don't think the card's amazing. I do think 5 artifacts for 5 is kind of fun, though. I mean, you have to use all of your 1/1s to crew it. Sort of silly. All right, let's move on. Up next, we have Surge of Acclaim, 1 and a blue instant. Choose 1. If you have max speed, choose both instead. Seek a card with Start Your Engines. Seek a non-land card, Jumpstart.
So, I think this card's probably not very good. You have to have max speed for it to be a 2-mana draw 2, and if it's a 2-mana draw 1, it's kinda eh.
Unless you have some Seek Your Engines card you really need.
Yeah, if you somehow have exactly 1 Start Your Engines card in your deck, and you care enough about getting that card to play Demonic Tutor for it, then we're sort of talking. Then this card looks less like Think Twice and more like a card that we were taking seriously. I'm not sure what that 1 speed card would be. Maybe Muraganda Raceway, maybe the Speed Demon.
But if Muraganda Raceway is the only speed card in your entire deck and you haven't played one yet,
yeah, then
what good is it? So you're starting
really
your engines on
those.
turn 3? That doesn't sound very good. Yeah, I don't think this card is playable in Alchemy either, maybe, but I don't know. I don't comment on Alchemy. I have no idea what's going on over there.
I haven't played Alchemy since before it rotated, and tend to think it's just a pure exercise to think of Alchemy cards as historic horizons. It does seek, and potentially seeks too, but I think the speed part of it is just making it a lot worse than Seek New Knowledge for a card that you'd play to try to trigger Lurker in the Deep.
Right. We talked about blue plus Glaring Fleshraker, so maybe there's some max speed
If
deck.
this could find Glaring Fleshraker or Curiosity reliably, I'd be all about it, but those are not the only non-land cards in your deck, and neither has Start Your Engines, so it's not a tutor for them.
No, yeah, it's rough. This card is bad. Let's move on.
Next we have Terror of the Track, a 1 black dinosaur, 2/1 with flying and double team. And then once per turn, when this or another creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So basically a Blood Artist, but without the thing that makes Blood Artist exciting in a format like Historic. It is still a body that has a decent chance of replacing itself and that flies and whose ability isn't totally irrelevant. Cheap, efficient dino, if you're trying to do the Regal Imperiosaur thing, is a place to be. If you're looking for a blood
color, though.
Yeah, you would have to be Golgari dinosaurs, which is not as support.
Yeah, lacking support for sure. You don't really want to attack with your Blood Artist either. So
it's easier to do if they fly.
That's true. Flying is good. On turn 3, yeah, you probably can get in a flyer. So that's something. This card is interesting, although I don't know that Blood Artist is really what you want in your dinosaur kindred deck anyway.
Yeah, weird card, we'll have to see. Alright, this is a card I think is actually quite good. I'm not entirely sure what to do with it yet, but let's talk about it. Trackhand Trainer, 1 blue, 1/1 merfolk. Classic, limited activated ability, 4 and a blue, draw a card. But wait, exhaust, 1 blue, conjure a card named Training Grounds onto the battlefield. Training Grounds, sort of classic, kind of combo-y card. Activated abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. This can't reduce the mana in those costs to less than 1. Training Grounds has always been kind of weird and frustrating because when you put it in your deck probably doesn't do anything if you don't draw it. You can put it in your deck on Arena. It was in Aftermath. It was reprinted there. But getting to the rule of 8, being able to play effectively 8 copies of Training Grounds is kind of real. Or if you don't want to play 8 copies of Training Grounds, this, unlike Training Grounds, is Zerta compliant.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, I guess. Training Grounds is like better Jewel or Omen Hawk or whatever kind of idea where it just statically reduces them. I think it's interesting, and, especially with maybe some kind of blue, maybe just still Teamer exhaust, but another 1-cost exhaust thing is good for the Afterburner guy. So we talked about that already, but, you know, kind of an interesting thing to have more 1-cost, you know, and then it also opens up more possibilities of exhaust cards that are a little harder to play because their mana cost for their exhaust is so high, or just other activated abilities.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're trying to flip Rona, who is also often good in these sorts of decks. Looting in what is probably a Cauldron deck is kind of cute. If you're putting a lot of Training Grounds into play with actual copies and trainers and cauldrons, you might get some of these costs of Rona or Surge Engine, or if there's another thing printed with an expensive activated ability that you actually care about activating and isn't just, you know, limited mana sink type stuff. I think this card will do something at some point. I'm not entirely sure what.
I kind of think it's funny though, because like now we're talking about like the possibility of the activated ability thing. You could do the Elvish Refueler and get one of these every single turn. So if there's something very expensive, I mean, we're talking about bad cards again. I love this card. I don't care how bad it is. I'm going to keep talking about it.
No, I can buy the idea that putting a Training Grounds onto the battlefield every turn in the right deck could be good. I'm not talking shit about Elvish Refueler. I kind of want to believe too.
Yeah, this is a little bit of Christmas, but we'll see. This is funny. I like the card. Okay, Tsagan, Raider Warlord for Mardu, 1/4. Legendary Dinosaur Berserker. A double strike. Start your engines. Whenever Tsagan attacks, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn for each creature you control with first strike or double strike. Hey now. It has death touch at max speed. Other creatures you control have first strike.
So there is a deck that is a tier deck in Historic that is in Mardu colors that plays a bunch of pretty good first striking bodies. This deck will not play Tsagan Raider Warlord because he is Lurrus non-compliant. If you want us to
play these fun cards, you gotta ban Lurrus.
I don't know for sure that Energy would be interested in any number of this with Lurrus gone, but it certainly would have a better chance of, you know, your Mardu Dinosaurs Amped Raptor first strike pile having a shot, or of any sort of Pride Raptor Tsagan deck working out if he weren't just completely a non-starter because every card you'd be interested in playing with him would rather play with Lurrus.
Yeah. Once again, for the Brawl players, they get to play.
Oh yeah, he's probably a very fun commander.
Very fun commander, looks like, yeah. Okay, Turbocharged Escape, 3 white, destroy all non-vehicle creatures. Then choose a vehicle you control. It perpetually becomes an artifact creature. We're paying Sunfall prices for some vehicle nonsense.
Yeah, Sunfall prices are a bit of an ask in Historic as it is. If you're playing a big Wrath, it's probably Verdict, or you're probably not in white and it's Damnation. And yeah, vehicle stuff is a little weird. You have to be a Wrath deck that is interested in playing vehicles. There is a pretty good vehicle with a perpetual effect from the last Alchemy set that sort of recurs and does cool things, and if it's perpetually a creature, that's kind of cool, and cares about things dying, which they do when you use this card, but I am pretty skeptical that this has a home in Historic.
That deck sounds rough to me. All right, so we have Unforgiving Overtake, Sorcery, 2 and a black. If you weren't the starting player, this spell costs 1 less to cast. Destroy target creature or vehicle, its controller loses 2 life. So it does do speed stuff. I like the little sideboard meme that we've got going on. Can only play this card. It's hard enough to play Quag Feast in Standard, okay? This card is not really doing it for me, but...
Yeah, I could see boarding it in on the draw if you're in a deck that really cares about speed, or really cares about, like, getting Spectacle, like if you're Rakdos Burn. or something. But it's unplayable when you're on the play. Like 3 mana is just too much. I feel like you'd also have to be in a deck where not just boarding in removal, but maybe boarding out a land on the draw or something made a lot of sense a lot of the time. So it's pretty narrow, but you might see one in the 75 of some deck at some point.
Sure. Okay, wish good luck. Red and a green sorcery, create a food token, create a tap treasure token, create a 3/2 colorless vehicle artifact token with crew 1. I mean, it's 3 artifacts for 2 in kind of weird colors.
Yeah, the weird colors are honestly sort of the biggest hang-up that I have with this card. Because, like, I guess there was that, the thing that conjured an inspiring statuary from earlier, but you can't really play this with Archway of Innovation. You can't play Teamer Affinity in Historic, but it sure does make a lot of material.
Yeah, even the Brawl players don't have that guy when you make a treasure or a food or a...
Academy Manufacturer.
Yeah, you don't have Academy Manufacturer.
Academy Manufacturer would be a good addition to Historic. That'd be fun, I think. It does also create 3 tokens. I did run into someone trying to live the Ginny Fey dream a while ago on the Historic ladder. Their deck was kind of cool. They kind of weren't. Folks, PSA, the year is 2025. You can't salt over Crucius Shelly Ring. It's not even good. But yeah, Ginny Fey, you can make 3 cats or 3 dogs for 2 mana. That's kind of decent. It makes a treasure and it makes a vehicle that can crew Magda, or that you can crew with Magda. That's kind of cute. There are some affinity cards in these sort of non-traditional affinity colors that might make this good. I don't know. It makes too much material to count it out and say that it won't see play. It probably will see some at some point, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's definitely a bizarre card. Yeah, it's the colors that are weird. I mean, if it was, you know, blue and black, would make more sense, or blue and red even. I don't know, something affinity-ish. I mean, green is just so far from what you want to be doing in Affinity. But yeah, maybe some Genie Fey thing, but that's probably a Brawl thing too. So I don't know. Cool cards. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know if you can play any of these cards in Historic or Timeless.